Here's a strange little experiment you can run on yourself right now. Think of the last person you chased, someone you texted twice because they didn't reply to the first one, someone whose approval you kept trying to earn, someone you kept showing up for even after they'd made it obvious they weren't showing up for you the same way. Got someone in mind? Now ask yourself this: the harder you chased, did they move closer to you or further away? For almost everyone, the honest answer is further away, and that's not a coincidence. That's not bad luck. That's a law of human psychology so consistent, it might as well be physics. Here's the part that's going to sting a little. The moment you start chasing someone, their attention, their approval, their affection, their respect, you've already told them, without saying a single word, that you need them more than they need you. And the human mind, whether we like it or not, is wired to devalue anything that's chasing it, and to value anything that seems to require effort to keep. The Stoics figured this out 2,000 years before modern psychology gave it fancy names like scarcity principle or attachment theory. They understood something brutally simple. The moment you stop needing someone to complete you, you become the kind of person people can't stop thinking about. Today, we're covering 7 Stoic lessons that will fundamentally change how you approach every relationship in your life: friendships, romance, even your career relationships. And by the time we get to lesson 4, you're going to recognize a pattern in your own life that's been quietly costing you your power for years. Let's get into it. Lesson 1. Wanting someone is fine. Needing them is the problem. Let's start by clearing up a misunderstanding that trips up almost everyone who first hears, "Stop chasing people." This is not a lesson about not caring. The Stoics were not emotionless robots who avoided connection. Some of the warmest, most devoted friendships in history come from Stoic circles. Marcus Aurelius wrote with deep affection about his mentors. Seneca wrote tender letters to friends he clearly cherished. The distinction the Stoics drew wasn't between caring and not caring. It was between wanting and needing. Wanting someone in your life is healthy. It's the foundation of every meaningful relationship you'll ever have. Needing someone, in the sense of requiring their presence, approval, or affection to feel whole, complete, or okay, that's where the trouble starts, because the moment you need something from another person, you've handed them a lever they can pull, whether they mean to or not. Epictetus built his entire philosophy around a simple but devastating distinction. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Another person's feelings toward you are not up to you. Their choice to text back, to show up, to prioritize you, none of that is something you control, no matter how much effort you put in. What is up to you is how much of your peace you attach to an outcome that was never yours to determine in the first place. Here's the practical shift. The next time you feel that pull to chase someone's attention, pause and ask yourself, am I wanting this or am I needing this? Wanting lets you pursue something calmly, with your dignity intact, able to walk away if it doesn't come together. Needing has you sending the third follow-up text, rehearsing what you'll say to win them back, checking your phone every 5 minutes. One of these is connection. The other is quiet self-abandonment, dressed up as love. Lesson 2. Chasing is a confession, not a compliment. Most people think chasing someone communicates how much they matter to you, a grand gesture of devotion. But look closer, and chasing actually communicates something very different, and much less flattering. It tells the other person that your sense of value depends on their response. Think about the psychology in play here. When someone senses that you need them more than you need yourself, it doesn't usually inspire them to give more. It inspires them to give less, and see how much you'll tolerate. This isn't cynicism about human nature. It's simply how scarcity and abundance function in every corner of life, including relationships. Things that are easy to get are valued less. Things that require no effort to keep are appreciated less. And a person who is actively chasing you has just revealed, without meaning to, that they will accept almost anything to keep the connection alive. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about not seeking validation from external sources, precisely because he understood this dynamic at an empire-wide scale. People who need your approval will contort themselves for it. People who don't need it are the ones whose opinion actually starts to matter to you. This doesn't mean playing games, being intentionally distant, or pretending not to care as a manipulation tactic. The Stoics would have had no patience for that kind of strategic coldness, because it's still built on trying to control someone else's perception of you. What it means is genuinely, internally, no longer needing the outcome. When you stop chasing, not as a tactic, but as a natural result of no longer needing that person's validation to feel secure, something shifts in how you show up. And paradoxically, that shift is often what makes people finally lean back in. Lesson 3. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. There's a word that gets a bad reputation in modern conversations about relationships. Detachment. People hear it and imagine someone walled off, incapable of real intimacy, protecting themselves by never fully showing up. That is not what the Stoics meant, and it's worth clearing this up thoroughly, because misunderstanding this concept is exactly what keeps people stuck chasing. Stoic detachment isn't about withdrawing your presence, it's about withdrawing your dependency. You can be fully present, fully warm, fully engaged with someone, while simultaneously holding the understanding that their choices about the relationship are theirs to make, not yours to control, through effort, pleading, or performance. Think of it like this. A gardener can pour real care, attention, and effort into a garden, and still understand that whether the seeds actually grow is not entirely up to them. Weather, soil, timing, all play a role beyond their control. A wise gardener doesn't stop caring for the garden because of this, but they also don't dig up the seeds every day in a panic, demanding to know why they haven't sprouted yet. They do their part, consistently and with care, and they let the rest unfold according to its own nature. This is what detachment actually looks like in relationships. You show up honestly, you communicate clearly, you offer real care, and then you release your grip on the outcome, because gripping tighter has never once, in the history of human relationships, made someone want to stay who didn't already want to. Lesson 4. The pattern that's been costing you for years. Here's the pattern I promised you earlier, and if this lands the way it usually does, it's going to feel uncomfortably familiar. Most people who struggle with chasing don't just chase in one relationship. It's a pattern that repeats across friendships, romantic relationships, even professional relationships. A repeated cycle of overgiving, over-explaining, overreaching toward people who are, often quite obviously, not reaching back at the same intensity. And the pattern almost always traces back to the same root. Somewhere along the way, a person learned that love, attention, or approval had to be earned through effort, rather than simply being something they were inherently worthy of. This isn't a character flaw. It's usually a learned survival strategy, something that made sense once, in an environment where attention genuinely was conditional on performance. But strategies that once protected us can quietly become the very thing sabotaging us, long after the original context that created them has disappeared. Here's the uncomfortable but liberating question worth sitting with. In the relationships where you've chased the hardest, was the chasing actually about that specific person? Or was it about proving something to yourself, filling a gap that has nothing to do with them at all? Because if it's the second one, and for most people it eventually is, no amount of successfully catching that person will actually fix the underlying feeling. You'll just find the next person to chase, because the chasing was never really about them in the first place. The Stoics believed deeply in self-examination for exactly this reason. Marcus Aurelius interrogated his own reactions daily, not to punish himself, but to understand the actual root of his disturbances, rather than treating the symptoms over and over. Applying that same honesty to your relationship patterns is uncomfortable, but it's the only way to actually stop the cycle, instead of just changing which person you're running after. Lesson 5. Your presence should be a gift, not a negotiation. There's a subtle but important shift that happens once you stop chasing. Your presence in someone's life stops being something you're constantly bargaining for and starts being something you simply offer, freely, to people who actually want it. Think about the difference in energy between these two postures. In the first, you're constantly checking. Do they still like me? Am I doing enough? Should I text again? Are we okay? Every interaction becomes a small negotiation for reassurance. In the second, you show up because you want to, you engage because it feels good, and if the other person isn't reciprocating that energy, you notice it calmly and adjust, without spiraling, without escalating your effort to compensate for their lack of it. Seneca wrote about the difference between a friendship that requires constant tending through anxious effort and one that simply exists because two people genuinely choose each other, without coercion or desperation. He was skeptical of relationships built on need, precisely because need distorts everything. It makes you say yes when you mean no, tolerate what you shouldn't tolerate, and mistake anxious intensity for actual connection. Here's a practical marker worth using. Notice how you feel after interacting with someone. Do you feel more like yourself, or do you feel like you had to perform, earn, or prove something just to maintain their interest? Relationships that require you to constantly chase reassurance are rarely relationships at all. They're auditions, and auditions, by definition, never actually end. The people worth having in your life won't require you to keep auditioning for a role you already deserve to have. Lesson 6. Letting go isn't losing. It's often how you win. This is the lesson most people resist the hardest because it feels completely backwards to everything we're taught about effort and relationships. We're told that if you want something badly enough, you fight for it, you don't give up, you keep trying. And in some areas of life, that's genuinely good advice. But relationships built on mutual desire don't function like a battle you win through sheer persistence. They function through mutual, uncoerced choice. And persistence in the face of someone's clear disinterest doesn't demonstrate love. It demonstrates an inability to accept an answer you didn't want to hear. Here's what's counterintuitive but consistently true. The moment you genuinely let go of the outcome, not as a manipulation tactic to seem unbothered, but as a real internal release, two things tend to happen. Either the person, freed from the pressure of being chased, sometimes closes the distance themselves, because attraction and interest often grow in the space created by someone who isn't desperately grabbing for it. Or, just as often and just as valuably, you finally see the situation clearly, without the fog of desperate hope clouding your judgment, and you realize this person was never going to meet you where you needed to be met, no matter how long you waited. Both outcomes are wins. The first gives you the relationship you actually wanted, built on mutual desire instead of one-sided pursuit. The second frees you from a slow drip situation that was quietly costing you your peace, your time, and your self-respect, one hopeful, unanswered gesture at a time. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about accepting the nature of things as they actually are, rather than as we wish them to be. Applied here, that means accepting, clearly and without bitterness, when someone's actions have already told you everything you need to know, and having the dignity to stop asking a question that's already been answered. Lesson 7. Become the person who doesn't need to chase. The final lesson ties everything together, and it's less a technique and more a description of who you become when you actually internalize the first 6. People who don't chase aren't unbothered by nature. They've simply built an internal foundation, solid enough that other people's inconsistency doesn't shake it. This foundation isn't built overnight, and it isn't built by reading about Stoicism once and deciding to feel differently. It's built the same way the Stoics built it, through daily practice, through consistently redirecting your energy toward what's actually in your control, your own growth, your own character, your own standards, instead of pouring that same energy into managing other people's opinions of you. Here's what's fascinating, and it's the paradox at the heart of this entire video. The people who stop chasing, who build genuine internal security instead become dramatically more attractive, in the fullest sense of that word, not because they're using some clever psychological trick, but because security is magnetic in a way that neediness never is. People are drawn to those who seem complete on their own, who clearly have a rich internal life independent of external approval, who would be perfectly fine without you, and are choosing to be around you anyway, purely because they want to. This is what unforgettable actually means in the context of this video's title. Not loud, not desperate for attention, not chasing validation in every room they walk into, but grounded, secure, and clearly whole in a way that makes people want to lean in, precisely because you're not leaning toward them first. Bringing it all together, let's walk through what we've covered. Wanting someone is healthy. Needing them is where your power leaks out. Chasing tells people, unintentionally, that your value depends on their response, and that rarely earns more respect. It tends to earn less. Detachment isn't coldness. It's caring fully while releasing your grip on outcomes you were never meant to control. The pattern of chasing usually has roots that go deeper than any one specific person, and it's worth examining honestly instead of endlessly repeating. Your presence should be something you offer freely, not something you constantly negotiate for through anxious effort. Letting go isn't losing. It's often the very thing that either brings someone closer or frees you to see clearly that they never would have. And all of this, practiced consistently, builds the kind of internal security that makes you magnetic without ever having to chase anyone again. None of this is about becoming unavailable, guarded, or performing indifference as a strategy. It's about genuinely, internally, no longer needing someone else's choices to determine your sense of worth, and discovering, almost as a side effect, that this is exactly the quality that makes people want to stay. Think back to that person you pictured at the beginning of this video, the one you chased. Ask yourself honestly, right now, what would it feel like to simply stop? Not to give up on connection, not to become cold or distant, but to release the grip, show up as yourself, and let whatever happens next happen on its own terms, without you forcing it. That release is not defeat. It's the beginning of becoming the kind of person other people find themselves chasing instead. Not because you tried to become that, but because you finally stopped needing to be chased in order to feel whole. If these 7 lessons shifted something in how you see your relationships, subscribe to Mind and Method, because next week we're covering the other side of this conversation, how to actually build deep, secure attachment with the right people once you've stopped wasting your energy chasing the wrong ones. Until then, want people, need only yourself.